Ability, why resilience, and that is my task for today. I will be having 4 parts for my presentation. The first part is trying to understand vulnerability for us to have a certain point of leveling off. The second one is the different factors of vulnerability, and I will zoom in to the social factors of vulnerability because that is my area of work. I work in the area of community development and social development, so my expertise in the aspect of the social. Then, I'm going to present to you what are the indicators used to measure social vulnerability. But we will not end there. What can we do to address social vulnerability? So those are the 4 parts of my presentation. So first, let us understand vulnerability. And in the definition of the United Nations Institute for Social Development Research, this is what vulnerability is. First, as highlighted, you will see there the word human dimension. And there are 4 factors when we talk about vulnerability. We have physical, social, economic, and environmental. And with this increases the susceptibility of an individual, a community, a structure or a system in a community when they are affected by a certain hazard. So in short, vulnerability is the inability to resist a hazard or to respond when a disaster has occurred. It's something that we view as negative. Okay? And this would be the famous formula for disaster risk. So we have hazard multiplied by exposure, multiplied by vulnerability, divided by capacity. Okay? So just a brief overview. Our focus is vulnerability, that's why it is highlighted in red. But to remind us of the meaning of each. So exposure is a situation of people, infrastructure, and intangible human assets located in hazard-prone areas. I remember oftentimes the location sites of governments we have experienced in the university when we follow down informal settlers. They are placed in an area of high exposure to a lot of hazards. It could be flooding hazards, it could be they are on top of the fault line. And that is one example of a concrete exposure to a certain hazard. Now, the second part is hazard. It says there are no natural disasters, but only natural hazards. So hazards are typhoons, earthquakes, an outbreak of fire. Okay? So all of this, it could be natural, anthropogenic or social natural, the combination of natural events and the acts of humans. Okay, but for the whole duration of the week, we'll be only talking about the impacts of natural hazards. Okay? Divide this 3, you have capacity. It refers to all the strengths. So it is the opposite. In literature, they would say capacity or resilience is the opposite of vulnerability. Okay? You will see attributes, resources available within a community in order to reduce the impact of a certain hazard. Okay? And then when we talk about risk, it is the likelihood of a loss of life, injury, or destruction and damage from a disaster in a given period of time. It is a disaster that has not happened yet. Okay? So, I believe that would be a part of the leveling off for today when we talk about vulnerability and other concepts of disaster. So I will be very careful. I will always refer to hazard rather than the common understanding of people when we talk about, did you experience a typhoon disaster? Maybe, did you experience a typhoon hazard. And disaster is the result of all of this. Vulnerability, exposure, hazard, divided by people's capacity. So the main argument is vulnerability is one of the defining components of disaster risk, which is the focus of my talk today. Alright, we're done with the first part. Easy. And I hope you're able to, all of us had a pattern of leveling off. Now we're going to talk about vulnerability factors. Oftentimes, when we look at vulnerability, we only look at it at the tip of the iceberg. And there are a lot underneath. The iceberg is much bigger below than above. Okay? And we often hear people say, this happens because people lack discipline. This happened to them because they're already told that there is a coming hazard, but they didn't do anything about it. Okay. Now, is that only the story why there are a lot of loss of lives when it comes to assessing the results of a certain event, a catastrophic event? So let us see. As defined a while ago, there are 4 factors when we talk about vulnerability. The first one, which is very easy to understand, is the physical factors. Now, that physical factor could compound the result of a certain hazard, depending on population density levels. You would know in urban areas, as Yusek Renato Celadum have said, in Metro Manila alone, they're expecting for how many body bags if the big one arrives. And in his data he showed yesterday, there are about how many? You used to remember how many body bags? It's 39,000 individuals. If you only look at the number versus 100 million population, 39,000 is small. But if you see it in the eyes of humanity, and you are in the middle of that situation where you're the only person who survived in your community, and 39,000 dead, it would have a traumatic impact to all of us. And I think that is not only the situation in Metro Manila. It is a situation in different urban areas in the Philippines, especially in areas heavily populated by informal settlers, where the housing is not resilient. The buildings that they live into are condemnable. For example, in Tondo, there is what you call the Vista ng Tondo. It is a former relocation site, temporary relocation site, a transition site before they could be put into different parts of the provinces. It used to have 300 families, but now, in the Philippines, the average family size is 5 to 8. But now that Vista ng Tondo has 7,177 families, per family averaging of 5 to 8. And if you see the structure, it's a 5-hectare lot. It is already condemnable. When the big one occurs, I don't think many will survive in that place. Okay? So population density, remoteness of a settlement. This could be where are you in rural areas, especially in relocation sites, which are often remote. People are put there because the land value is very low. No economic interest would be taking over. At the same time, when this land value is very low, it is exposed to a lot of hazards. Okay? Land use planning. How well do our local governments monitor land use? When you go to Baguio City, you would wonder what happened to Baguio City. Okay? A lot of structures everywhere, and it's not anymore recognizable. Buildings just sprout all over. In Metro Manila alone, condominiums sprout all over, blocking esteros. If you see the picture of Metro Manila in the 1930s, it was like Venice. People were traveling by boats, going to different houses, because there are a lot of waterways, but you do not see that anymore in Metro Manila. That's why there is flood everywhere in Metro Manila. Proximity of the site to the source and origin of hazard. Are you near coastal communities? Are you on top of fault line areas where many relocation sites are located? And the design and materials used for critical infrastructure and for housing. Do we follow international standards when it comes to social housing? Is it livable? And we know there are a lot of issues there when we talk about housing in the Philippines. So all of that contribute to vulnerability. As this example, wooden homes are less likely to collapse in an earthquake, but are more vulnerable to fires. Second, economic factors. Varied sources of income. Okay? Especially when we talk about marginalized communities, they don't experience regular employment. Most of them are in the informal sector, and everything that they do is seasonal. So, do they have that kind of variability when looking for other means of livelihood? The ease of access and control over means of production. Who owns the farm that they build? Who owns the fishing pens? Okay. Adequacy of economic fallback mechanisms. When they get sick or when something happens, do they have social security? Do they have an economic fallback? And the last one, the availability of natural resources. So all of this contribute to economic vulnerabilities. Poorer families may live in squalid and slum settlements because they cannot afford to live in safer but more expensive areas. The third one is environmental factors, very obvious. So all of this depending upon the natural resources available in the community and what we do with those resources, and if it is experiencing a lot of degradation. Sierra Madre in Luzon, spanning the most part of the zone that protects us from heavy impacts of typhoon, is always in constant danger of deforestation. We have a partner community near Sierra Madre, and every night when we are there, loggers come down the mountain at night in habal-habal or motorcycles. They're carrying down wood secretly at night. So slowly by slowly, portions of Sierra Madre is being cut down. Okay. So all of this would lead to catastrophic events, soil erosion, flash floods. Massive deforestation may lead to soil erosion and catastrophic flash floods in the event of a storm. Now, the last one that I will focus for today are the social factors of vulnerability. So when we talk about social factors, we need to consider people's level of literacy and education. Do they understand climate change? Do they understand storm surge? Can they read and understand the signs made by local governments or the national government in understanding intensity level of earthquakes? Okay. So literacy has something to do there. The existence of general peace and security in the area. Are they being threatened? For example, in our experience with indigenous peoples, not much in terms of natural hazards, but more on people trying to reclaim their land in other means, even though that they already have the ancestral domain. The FPIC, or the Free Prior and Informed Consent, can be hacked, meaning you pay a datu to represent a community, and the datu tells, okay, you can operate in our area. And a lot of that happens when it comes to mining, and when it comes to agroforestry, or monocropping agriculture for export. So it affects peace and security, access to basic human rights. The Philippines is the #1 subscriber of the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. And we have signed all treaties, conventions. We're very good at that. But are we good at implementation? Are people able to claim their rights? And is the government seen as the primary duty bearer? Rights-based approach to development. Systems of good governance, and of course, people's collective attitude towards change and disaster. How do they view hazards? Is it a punishment from a deity? Or is it because I have seen a lot, and this is my karma? And you would hear that story of people in a certain town in Yolanda. This story came out that we were not impacted by the disaster because we prayed a lot. Well, the rest surrounding the town, a lot of them died. But this community was saved because they believe that prayers helped them. So I guess the rest who prayed did not pray seriously enough. Okay? So factors like that, when we look about how we see disasters and hazards in our life, it affects how people act upon it. And other social equity and equality concepts, such as gender. When we talk about gender, many studies have shown that women are more vulnerable to men when it comes to natural hazards because, first, they are more likely to be poor, not able to finish their education. And if a certain community is very patriarchal, they are politically marginalized. Second one, often face additional burdens since they are the ones who take care of the family. And if they take care of the family, they are the ones who are left behind to protect children and the elderly in times of hazards. So oftentimes the result is there are more body counts of women, children, elderly, and persons with disabilities when a catastrophic event occurs. So too when it comes to race and ethnicity. We go back to indigenous peoples who have a long history of marginalization in the Philippines. Look at the Badiaos, where they are. Can they reclaim their areas? Always they are being pushed and pushed to the borders of geographical areas because they live in prime lots where many people would like to take advantage. And because of their ethnicity, they are becoming more exposed to natural hazards. Socio-economic class. When we talk about socio-economic class, the poor are less likely to afford resilient housing, poor are less likely to purchase resources needed for disaster response. Can they afford making a disaster kit? And third, the poor are less likely to have access to medical care and insurance. Illness and disability, age, religious bias, ideology, and political bias, especially in areas where, these people did not vote for me, hence there will be no resilient services for them. You will see this in the Philippines. Roads, good pavement. Then, at the middle of nowhere, a road. After a few kilometers, good roads again. And you would ask, why? What happened to that community? They did not vote for the existing mayor or for the governor. Okay? These things happen. So all of this compound the vulnerability of individuals living in communities. So when flooding occurs, some citizens such as children, elderly, and differently able may be unable to protect themselves or evacuate if necessary. Now, there are ways to measure social vulnerabilities. In this publication by Pateni and et al., we have here from the Harvard Humanitarian Institute. I hope Enzo knows Ali Ardalan. So they did a systematic review and they tried to find out how social vulnerability can be measured. And these are their main areas of measurement. Okay, so we have indicators: gender, demographic attributes, socioeconomic status, public resources, disability, and special needs. So these are the key areas to look for. And how do we measure this one? And through a lot of studies, for example, female population, age structure, family structure, and there are the different variables to be able to measure them. I want you to get a hold of a copy. I would be giving a copy of that research so that you'll be able to download it. I will not discuss this one by one, but there are existing. How can you measure these different concepts? Okay? And this will be very helpful for local government units to understand social vulnerability. So there are a lot. Okay? It depends upon what you want to focus on. Look at the variables, and those are the references that they got. For social vulnerability. Okay? So look for Fatani. Last one is, how do we address social vulnerabilities? The first part is trying to understand there are different causes. We have root causes, dynamic pressures, and unsafe conditions. When we look at the root causes, it's all about power, structures, and resources. And lack of training, local investment, and even press freedom is there. I'm going to focus on two aspects here: power and training people to become disaster resilient. In our university, University of Santo Tomas, the Simbayan Medical Office, we work in different areas in empowering people, from health, to culture, to education, to employability, leadership, evangelization. And the last two are pertaining to the RRM. We have environmental sustainability in action, where we harness renewable energy to be used by communities, training on solid waste management and materials recovery facility, and a lot of trainings on DRRM. Okay? One aspect so that we could cover and have a lot of impact. Through our research, we developed a module for communities to be taught by our students in NSTP. So first, we did our research. I was with occupational therapist, one of which is here, Charles. Charles, could you kindly stand up? Charles is an OT, which is my co-researcher when it comes to disability inclusive, DRRM. And we're trying to measure how could we be of help through our NSTP program. So we had 4 stakeholders: the administrators, facilitators, our students, and our partner communities. In the university, we have 120 partner communities, but we pilot tested among those 120. What are the concepts of disability inclusive DRRM and how could NSTP help in that aspect? Time is up, all right? So I'm just gonna show, give me 2 minutes, show different aspects. So it was Charles, John, all of them are occupational therapists. They developed this module. So it looks upon different aspects of DRRM and how it could be inclusive. And medyo tumalo na. Ano siya? Alright. And it looks about how are you going to handle children and youth with disabilities. It talks about communicable disease, and it talks about communication difficulties in that module. So this module is research-based, and our goal is for students to learn this, and when they go to communities, they're able to empower and train individuals, different sectors in communities, to understand disability inclusive disaster risk reduction management. If you want to get a hold of this module, go talk to Charles. Okay? He is the OD. And community youth organizing. It's very important for the youth to understand why they need to prepare for a disaster. So we did, together with my students, we did leadership trainings for disaster risk reduction management because it is a collective effort. A lot of concepts, trying to understand, this is their growing understanding hazards in their area. This is an AITA community in Tarlac. So ethnic and youth. This is what they do, trying to understand what they need to do. And I have my students here who is involved. Tisha and Edwin. Okay. So they were with me in about almost one school year ago. This was done April 2018. Okay. So a lot of trainings involved for the youth, for them to become empowered in BRRM. Okay. So this is one way, when you want to create projects, how can vulnerable sectors become part of it? And the government is good at the macro level, but the grassroots level, what should be done? Okay? And the last part is, I'm going to present here a 1-minute song regarding, you need to popularize disaster risk reduction management to people so that they would understand it's significant in their lives. So this 1-minute song is called ang disaster kit ng isang batang pangalang Buboy by the name of Buboy. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. Let us listen to this 1-minute song.
Laman ay kahandaan. Ang cute na si Buboy, always ready sa sakuna. Ang cute na kit ay survival kit pag may calamity. May poporo, cellphone at flashlight, ay ang radyong di baterya. May dabil na mga first aid kit, tubig at tilata. Ang cute na kit ni Buboy, always ready sa sakuna. Ang cute na kit ay survival kit kapag nagigipit. May underwear, toys at crayons, kung maluman pantalon. May Swiss knife, lubid at ipon, important documents ay ibaon. Ang cute na si Buboy, always ready sa sakuna. Ang cute na kit ay survival kit pag may calamity. Mag-cute na kit, mag-survival kit for protection and safety. Mag-cute na kit, mag-survival kit para always ready.
So in order to address social vulnerabilities, you go to the people. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Mark. And ang cute ni Buboy.